Why can one long look from a woman feel more intimate than holding her hand, hugging her, or even being physically close to her? And more importantly, why can that moment stay in your head for days afterward? Because sometimes eye contact doesn't just make you feel seen, it makes you feel exposed in a way touch simply doesn't. If you've ever experienced that kind of look and wondered what was really happening, subscribe to the channel and like this video, because we're going deeper than the usual "she looked at you, so she likes you" advice. That difference comes down to something surprisingly simple: attention. When someone touches you, you feel their physical presence. But when someone looks directly into your eyes and stays there, you can feel something else entirely. Their attention is focused on you, and focused attention can feel deeply personal. Think about your everyday life. People constantly glance at phones, scan rooms, interrupt conversations, and mentally drift somewhere else. So when a woman gives you sustained, undivided attention, your brain may register that moment as unusually significant. Not because eye contact magically creates attraction, but because attention signals, "Right now, you matter enough for me to stay here." That can hit differently, especially if you're a man who doesn't often feel emotionally noticed. And here's where your mind can quietly get ahead of reality. Feeling seen by someone can become confused with being wanted by them. Those are not always the same thing. A woman might genuinely enjoy your presence without wanting romance. She might feel emotionally connected without experiencing strong attraction. Or she may actually be interested, but still be uncertain about what she wants. That's why one intense look should never become your entire case. Look for patterns. Does she repeatedly seek your attention? Does her warmth continue when there's no dramatic eye contact happening? Does she initiate conversation, remember details you've shared, move toward connection, and make it easier for you to spend time together? Behavior over time tells you far more than one cinematic moment ever could. But there's another layer here, and this is where things become fascinating. Sometimes the eye contact feels powerful because you're not only reading her, you're becoming aware of yourself through her eyes. Suddenly you're wondering how she sees you. Attractive, interesting, nervous, confident. That self-awareness creates vulnerability. And vulnerability can feel intimate because you temporarily lose the comfortable distance you normally keep between your inner world and everyone else's perception of you. You can't completely control what she sees. For some men, that's exciting. For others, it's terrifying. And sometimes it's both at once. That's why you may instinctively look away, smile, then look back. Your nervous system is managing intensity while your mind tries to understand what just happened. But there's still a bigger question. Why does one woman's gaze barely affect you, while another woman's eye contact seems to go straight through you? The answer isn't only about her. A surprising amount of that intensity may already be coming from you. Here's what most guys don't realize. Physical touch gives your brain something concrete to process. A hand on your shoulder happened. A hug happened. You know what it was. But prolonged eye contact can be psychologically ambiguous, and ambiguity is incredibly powerful. You start wondering, was that intentional? Did she feel that too? Why didn't she look away? And suddenly, you're not just remembering her eyes, you're replaying the entire moment. That's where attraction can become mentally intense. Eye contact carries information without words. Interest, nervousness, warmth, curiosity, confidence, hesitation, sometimes several of those at once. Your brain is trying to interpret tiny changes in expression, timing, and attention, often before you're consciously aware you're doing it. But hold on, because this matters. Deep eye contact does not automatically mean romantic attraction. A woman may hold your gaze because she feels comfortable with you, because she's naturally expressive, because she's listening closely, or yes, because she's attracted to you. Context changes everything. And yet, even when you don't know what her gaze meant, your emotional reaction can still be very real. That's the strange part. Sometimes uncertainty makes the moment harder to forget, not easier. Think about the woman whose eyes stayed on yours just 1 second longer than expected. Maybe the room seemed quieter. Maybe you suddenly became hyper-aware of yourself. You felt your posture change. Your thoughts disappeared for a second. Why? Because sustained mutual attention can create a feeling of psychological closeness. You're not merely near another person. You're aware that she's aware of you. And there's a specific reason that awareness can hit harder than touch. Once you understand it, you'll also understand why some looks create connection, while others only create an illusion of it that your mind desperately wants to believe. And that's the detail people underestimate. Eye contact doesn't arrive in an emotional vacuum. You bring your history, expectations, attraction, loneliness, confidence, and uncertainty into that moment with you. So two women could look at you in almost exactly the same way, yet your mind might assign completely different meaning to each experience. Why? Emotional salience. When someone already matters to you, your brain tends to prioritize information connected to that person. Her expression matters more. Her messages feel more important. Small changes in her behavior become easier to notice. Then she holds your gaze. Now that tiny moment lands on top of everything you already feel. This is why a 3-second look from someone you're attracted to can feel more powerful than a long conversation with somebody you aren't emotionally invested in. But here's the trap. The stronger your feelings become, the easier it can be to mistake intensity inside you for evidence about what's happening inside her. Read that emotionally, not literally. You might think, there's no way I could feel something this strong if nothing was happening between us. Actually, you can. Your feelings are genuine. Your interpretation may still be incomplete. And understanding that doesn't make the moment meaningless. It makes you more emotionally intelligent about what you're experiencing. Because attraction isn't only about receiving signals, it's also about the meaning your mind gives those signals. Now, something else can make eye contact unusually addictive: uncertainty. Imagine you're talking to a woman who's consistently friendly but difficult to read. Sometimes she seems drawn toward you. Other times, she feels distant. Then one evening, she looks directly into your eyes, doesn't immediately look away, and smiles. Your mind gets hooked on the unanswered question. What was that? Not necessarily because you've discovered hidden love, but because unresolved experiences tend to invite mental replay. Your brain wants a conclusion, so it keeps returning to the evidence. That replay can intensify the memory. And pretty soon, you're not remembering one look anymore. You're analyzing it. Her smile. The pause. What happened before it? What happened afterward? That's where guys can accidentally build an entire relationship inside an unanswered moment. And I want you to notice something important. Real connection usually becomes clearer with time, not endlessly more confusing. If mutual attraction is developing in a healthy way, eye contact is rarely the only evidence. There's usually a broader pattern. And once you know what that pattern looks like, you can separate genuine growing intimacy from something far more deceptive: projection disguised as chemistry. Projection is what happens when the meaning you're experiencing comes more from your inner world than from the evidence in front of you. In attraction, this can happen so subtly that you don't realize you're filling in blanks. Maybe she held your gaze twice, you felt a charge, then your imagination started writing the rest of the story. You remember how she laughed at your joke. You notice she stood near you. You replay the way she said your name. Suddenly, separate moments look like pieces of one romantic puzzle. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're just separate moments. And knowing the difference can save you months of confusion. Here's what I want you to watch instead: consistency, reciprocity, and progression. Consistency means her interest doesn't appear only during intense moments. There's warmth across different situations. Reciprocity means you're not carrying the entire connection. You reach toward her, and sometimes she reaches toward you too. She contributes to conversations. She makes space for you. There's mutual effort. Progression means the relationship moves somewhere. You learn more about each other. Conversations deepen. Time together becomes intentional. Comfort increases. Maybe attraction becomes clearer. Notice what isn't on that list. Staring. Eye contact can support a pattern, but it shouldn't replace one. And there's an important reason men sometimes want it to. A look allows you to experience possibility without risking an answer. As long as nothing is said, the fantasy remains protected. She might like you. She might be waiting. She might feel exactly what you feel. But asking her out respectfully, expressing interest, or allowing the relationship to develop gives reality a chance to answer. And reality is scarier than possibility. Because reality can say yes. It can also say no. Yet here's the twist. Emotionally confident men don't need to destroy ambiguity immediately. They simply don't build their self-worth inside it. You can enjoy the tension. You can appreciate a beautiful moment. You can notice that her gaze affected you without turning yourself into a detective. That balance is attractive. You're present, but grounded. You're interested, but you're not inventing certainty. And that groundedness may make genuine intimacy easier because you're responding to the woman in front of you instead of the woman your imagination created. But we still haven't touched the deepest reason eye contact can feel physically intense. It involves vulnerability, anticipation, and one fear: being truly seen. Being truly seen sounds romantic until it actually happens. Then you realize how vulnerable it can feel. Because when someone holds your gaze, there isn't much to hide behind. You become aware of your expression, your nervousness, maybe even the attraction you're trying not to reveal. Words give you editing power. You can choose what to say. You can make a joke, change the subject, explain yourself. Your eyes are harder to manage. That doesn't mean they're magical truth detectors. People can misread expressions all the time, but eye contact can feel revealing because you're communicating while simultaneously watching the other person react to you. It's a feedback loop. You look at her, she notices, you realize she noticed, she realizes you noticed her noticing, and suddenly something that sounds ridiculous when I describe it slowly feels incredibly intense in real time. That's anticipation. Neither person necessarily knows what comes next. Maybe someone smiles, maybe someone looks away, maybe the conversation shifts, maybe nothing romantic happens whatsoever, but for those few seconds, there's possibility. And possibility can create emotional tension before anything physical occurs. Here's where this becomes important for your confidence. Some men believe they need to maintain intense eye contact to prove they're dominant, fearless, or attractive. Please don't turn connection into a staring contest. Healthy eye contact breathes. You look at her naturally. You look away. You respond to what she's saying. You smile when you genuinely feel like smiling. You allow the interaction to have rhythm instead of trying to perform some technique you learned online. Because when you're obsessing over how many seconds to hold her gaze, you're no longer connecting with her. You're monitoring yourself, and she may feel that tension. The goal isn't to make your eyes powerful, it's to become comfortable enough with yourself that you don't need to manufacture intensity. There's a major difference. One creates pressure, the other creates presence. And presence is where intimacy has room to grow. Think back to the strongest eye contact you've experienced. What made it memorable probably wasn't simply its duration. It was the emotional context around it, what you already felt, what remained unsaid, whether you trusted her, whether she seemed engaged, and what you imagined might happen next. But there's one more piece that can make a single look almost impossible to forget. It often appears when the connection ends abruptly, never begins, or leaves you without closure. And that's when intimacy can quietly turn into idealization. Idealization becomes powerful when reality doesn't get enough time to correct imagination. Maybe you shared a few intense conversations with her. Maybe there was unmistakable warmth, lingering eye contact, and that feeling that something was developing. Then circumstances changed. She pulled away, you moved, timing got complicated, or neither of you ever acted on it. Now your mind has unfinished material. An unfinished material can become strangely polished in memory. You don't remember every awkward pause or ordinary conversation. You remember the electricity, the look, the possibility. That's why a brief connection can sometimes haunt you longer than an actual relationship. Not because it was necessarily deeper, because it remained unresolved. Here's the part that can completely change how you understand attraction. Your brain isn't only attached to what happened. Sometimes it becomes attached to what could have happened. That imagined future never had to face real life. No disagreements, no incompatible habits, no disappointing Tuesday nights, no discovery that the chemistry didn't translate into a healthy relationship. The possibility stays perfect because reality never got the chance to make it human. And deep eye contact can become the symbol your mind attaches to that possibility. So months later, you aren't necessarily craving those few seconds of eye contact. You may be craving the version of yourself you felt in those seconds. Desired, alive, confident, hopeful, chosen. That's a much deeper realization, because once you recognize it, you stop asking only, what did her look mean? You start asking, why did that moment mean so much to me? That question gives you useful information. Maybe you miss emotional closeness. Maybe you're hungry for genuine attention. Maybe you've been protecting yourself from vulnerability, and that brief moment reminded you what openness feels like. None of that means you're weak or imagining everything. It means your emotional response contains information about you, not just about her. And this is where maturity changes the game. Instead of chasing the feeling by obsessing over one woman, you can understand what the feeling points toward and build more opportunities for real connection. Because genuine intimacy isn't supposed to live permanently inside a memory. It needs reality. It needs reciprocity. It needs two people gradually discovering whether the connection can survive outside those charged moments. And when it can, something fascinating happens. Eye contact stops being merely exciting and starts becoming something far more deeply personally meaningful.